Krishna
Krishna Krishna
Krishna
Hare Hare Ho
Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare Ho
Hare Rama
Rama
Hare Rama
Rama Rama
Hare Hare Ho
Hare Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare
Ho Hare Krishna
Krishna
Hare Krishna
Krishna
Krishna Krishna
Krishna
Hare Hare Ho
Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare
Ho Hare Rama Hare Rama
Rama
Rama Rama
Rama
Hare Hare Ho
Hare Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare
Ho Hare Krishna
Krishna
Hare Krishna
Krishna
Krishna Krishna
Krishna
Hare Hare Ho
Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare Ho
Jai Ma Gange
Ganga
Jai Ma Gange
Ganga
Jai Ma Gange
Ganga
Jai Ma Gange Ho
Jai Ma Ganga Jai Ma Ganga Jai Ma Ganga Jai Ma Ganga
Ho Jai Ma Gange
Ganga
Jai Ma Gange
Ganga
Jai Ma Gange
Ganga
Jai Ma Gange Ho
Jai Ma Ganga Jai Ma Ganga Jai Ma Ganga Jai Ma Ganga
Ho Har Har Gange
Ganga
Har Har Gange
Ganga
Har Har Gange
Ganga
Har Har Gange Ho Har Har Gange
Har Har Gange Har Har Gange Har Har Gange
O Gange Ma
Gange Ma
Gange Ma
Gange Ma
Gange Ma
Gange Ma
Gange Ma Gange Ma
Gange Ma Gange Ma
He Ma He Ma He Ma He Ma He Ma He Ma He Ma He Ma He Ma He Ma बोलिए सर्वेश्वर भगवान की गंगा मैया की भारत माता की धरती माता की हर हर महादेव।
ओम जय गंगे माता मैया जय गंगे माता, जो नर तुमको ध्याता, जो नर मैया जी को ध्याता, मनोवांछित फल पाता। ओम जय गंगे माता। एक ही बार जो तेरी शरणागति आता, ओ मैया शरणागति आता, यम की त्रास मिटा कर, यम के कष्ट मिटा कर, परम गति पाता। ओम जय गंगे माता। मंगलकारिणी मैया, तू है सुखदाता, मैया तू है सुखदाता। तेरी गोद में आकर, तेरी शरण में आकर, मन शांति पाता। ओम जय गंगे माता। ब्रह्म स्वरूपिणी मैया, जो तुमको ध्याता, मैया जो तुमको ध्याता, तेरी दया से सोजन, तेरी कृपा से सोजन, सद्गति है पाता। ओम जय गंगे माता। आरती मात तुम्हारी, जो जननित गाता, मैया प्रेम सहित गाता। दास वही असज में, भक्त वही असज में,
मुक्ति को पाता। ओम जय गंगे माता, जय गंगे माता, मैया जय गंगे माता। जो नर तुमको ध्याता, जो नर मैया जी को ध्याता, मनवांछित फल पाता। ओम जय गंगे माता, जय गंगे माता, जय गंगे माता। त्वमेव माता च पिता त्वमेव, त्वमेव बन्धु च सखा त्वमेव, त्वमेव विद्या द्रविणं त्वमेव, त्वमेव सर्वं मम देव देव। सर्वे भवन्तु सुखिनः, सर्वे सन्तु निरामयाः, सर्वे भद्राणि पश्यन्तु, मा कश्चित् दुःखभाग् भवेत्। शान्तिः शान्तिः शान्तिः। जय जय राधा रमण, हरि बोल हरि बोल। जय जय राधा रमण, हरि बोल। जय राधा रमण, हरि बोल हरि बोल। जय जय राधा रमण, हरि बोल। जय जय राधा रमण, जय राधा रमण, जय जय राधा रमण, हरि बोल। Hari Bol. Jai Radha Ramana Hari Bol. Hari Bol. Jai Radha Ramana Hari Bol. Jai Jai Radha Ramana Jai Radha Ramana Jai Jai Radha Ramana Hari Bol.
When we meditate, I'll frequently say something like, don't hook your attention into your thoughts when they come, but allow them to pass by your consciousness, like clouds are blowing across a blue sky on a windy day, and to keep the focus on the blue sky between the clouds. What most of us tend to do is, let's say I'm meditating, I'm focusing here. This is my mantra, this is my breath, this is my third eye, this is whatever I'm meditating on. And from over here a thought comes. And the thought says, let's say, oh my God, I forgot to make dinner reservations tonight. Now, there's two options. Option one is I hook my attention into it. I've noticed it. I hear what the thought says, oh my God, I forgot to make dinner reservations. And option one is I hook my attention into that. And it goes, I forgot to make dinner reservations. Oh my God, the restaurant is going to be full. I know they're going to be full. They've just opened. We're never going to get in. Oh my God, that means the whole night is going to be wasted because we're going to have to wait half an hour to get a table. I really need to figure out some other place that we can eat, but oh my God, that's the only place that is, vegetarian and gluten-free, and that the people I'm eating with, that it fits everybody's diet, and I can't believe it, and I'm so stupid, and I meant to write it down, I forgot to write it down, and 20 minutes later, I remember I was meditating. That's one option. That's I'm hooked into this thought and I follow it as far as it wants to go. Frequently very deep either into the past. You've always been like this. You never could do anything. Remember when you forgot to bring your homework in 6th grade? That was the beginning of the end. Or something in the future. You'll never remember to do things. You'll never become a responsible person. You'll never become anything. So we tend to usually end up, if we allow ourselves to just hook our attention to our thoughts, either deep in our past or deep in our future. The other option when thoughts come is, I'm aware there's a thought over here, but I stay focused, and the thought's going to kind of do this, and it's going to do that, and I'm on my blue sky, I'm on my mantra, I'm on my breath. And it's going to come. And for a moment, right here, it's obscuring my meditation. But instead of hooking into it and going here with it, I stay focused. And the thought goes like this. And I'm focused on the space between the clouds. So it doesn't mean we are the blue sky. It means in that space between thoughts, in that spaciousness, we have the opportunity to experience who we are. Because otherwise we are our thoughts. Right? In that particular thought, I am irresponsible, I am stupid, I am worthless, I am all of these things. Well, we know obviously that's not who we are. But how am I gonna experience who I am? If every time I have a thought, I get hooked into that, how do I experience my true self? Well, the only space for that to happen is in the space between the thoughts. And in that space, we have an experience of who we are, which is spaciousness, expansiveness, stillness. Not stillness in a stagnant way, but stillness as the opposite of the freneticness of the monkey mind. Still like a blue sky is still. Very alive, very present, full of actual molecules that are moving, but without any sort of a frenetic energy to it. It's consciousness. That's who we are. But we have to have an experience of sitting in that place between the thoughts to be able to experience it. Otherwise, I have an emotion of anger, I'm angry. I have an emotion of fear, I'm afraid. I have an emotion of joy, I'm happy. Which means that who I am is like a ping pong ball. Happiness hits it, I'm happy. Anger hits it, I'm angry. Fear hits it, I'm afraid. I have to stop the ping pong ball for a moment and sit in the stillness to have that experience. If I am listening to satsang, then who is enjoying it? My mind, my brain, or my atma? And if I am doing drugs or other sinful things, then who is enjoying that? A beautiful, very deep question to begin with. Before we even go into looking at what an answer might look like, let's just sit with the question for a minute, because actually in the Indian spiritual tradition, one of the ways in, one of the paths in of gyan, or wisdom, knowing, is questioning. Who am I? Who am I? And so the question has given us a very interesting way in. Who is it that's sitting here is enjoying it? Or sitting somewhere else in the world, watching, connecting with us via the wonderful medium of technology. Who's the one enjoying? And is it the same one that enjoys when I do sinful things? I mean, is it one part of me that enjoys when I do good things, and a different part that enjoys when I do bad things? And so before we really start looking at the answer, just allow yourself to sit for a moment with that question. Because a lot of times the experience of sitting with a question like that gives us an internal experience that can be just as deep and just as profound as a verbal answer. Do I have two enjoyers? Or is there one enjoyer? Does the soul, the atma, actually enjoy anything? So now let's look at what an answer might even begin to look like. Let's first take the mind-brain option. Is it my mind-brain that's enjoying this? Well, we do know something neurologically about what the brain's reward system looks like. And what we know about that on a very basic level is when something gives me pleasure, I enjoy it, and I'm therefore more likely to do it. as a neurologic response. So for example, you do a study of rats, let's say, or mice, or whatever animals they do all of the studies with, and they can test by literally how much will a mouse or a rat push, for example, a red bar in order to get this treat or that treat, or in order to play with this or hear that sound. So they've got these very, very specific, measured ways of knowing what's pleasurable. So we know in our own brains, biochemically and in terms of neural pathways, which part of my brain enjoys something. So yeah, if while you're sitting here in satsang, you're enjoying any element of it, whether you are enjoying the depth of traveling into a place of truth, whether you're enjoying the experience of simply sitting in a community, sitting with the sangha, the community, that aspect of just being together regardless of what we're doing. We could be singing, we could be meditating, we could be silent. We happen to be in satsang. But there's an element of joy that comes also just from being in the community. You could be enjoying the nice air conditioner and fan coming in from outside. So we're going from the most deep to the most, you could say, superficial reasons. But you could be enjoying satsang on any one of these reasons, on any one of these levels, or a mix thereof. You could be enjoying the depth of going into truth, going into the light, and also enjoy the nice cool breeze from the AC and the fans, and enjoy the community. So regardless of what you're enjoying, if you are enjoying any aspect of it, yes, parts of your brain are absolutely responding. Neurologic researchers would be able to say this person is enjoying what they're doing by looking at the way that the different neural pathways, biochemical reactions are taking place in the brain. But that doesn't actually mean the brain is enjoying it. So again, we look, but beautiful example. In that moment, sweet little boy rushes to the front, we smile at him. Something in our brain actually reacted at the same time. Every one of our brains that looked at him, that got a smile, that we let out a little giggle, a scientific researcher watching that could say, joy. Whether we talk about joy pathways, we talk about joy chemicals, we talk about joy electricity, whatever way we're looking at it. A brain scientist could, if we were all hooked up to machines at this time, a brain scientist could say, joy. But that doesn't actually mean that the joy is sitting in the brain. It doesn't actually mean that it's the brain that enjoyed it. The brain is just call it an organ, call it a tool, call it a part. I mean, the brain is a physical part of the body. Does a physical part of the body have an ability to enjoy? And again, I'm throwing questions out, not necessarily questions that have answers, but questions that themselves are ways in. I'm enjoying a chocolate ice cream cone. Well, all right, what I know is happening biochemically and neurologically is that there are signals, chemical and electrical signals going from my taste buds into my brain that's lighting up and saying, joy. Should I be on a diet at the time and therefore feeling really guilty about the fact that I'm eating the chocolate ice cream cone? There's going to be some complex other things going on in my brain at the same time. It's not going to be just pure joy, because there's going to be a part of me going, oh man, broke my diet. Now I have to start again tomorrow. So there's going to be all of that going on. So the brain is a way for us to look and to say, yes, there is joy going on. But is it the brain enjoying? And if not, what part of us is enjoying? Where does joy sit? It's not the soul. The soul just is. The soul is. The soul is returning back to its highest expression, its truest expression. Back to its fullness. It's like the drop going back to the ocean. Does the drop actually care if it's covered in sewage compared to being covered in a beautiful mountain stream? I mean, if water evaporates from the ocean, it gets carried by clouds. It then falls on the earth. Some of it's going to fall in beautiful mountain streams. Some is going to fall in someone's swimming pool. Some is going to fall in a sewer. But ultimately, all of those drops are going to head back toward the ocean. All water on the earth is coming down on the surface or underground toward the ocean. Does the drop actually care one way or the other? So the soul, what gives the soul joy, you could say, is to be in its fullest expression. And so things that cause us to feel expansive, to feel borderless, boundaryless, this is what gives joy in our experience of the soul. And you'll notice that I said that very specifically. It's not actually joy in the soul. The soul just is. The soul is not born. It does not die. The soul is that ocean. But our individual experience of soul, as we are on our path toward awakening, enlightenment, oneness, we feel the highest level of joy, the deepest level of joy, when we are closest to the truest expression of the soul, which is borderless, boundaryless one. That is why, for example, on a level that everyone's going to be able to relate to, that's why being in love feels so nice. And that's why when we talk about loving, we use words like melting and merging and swimming and bathing. They're all words of expansion. They're words of losing where I end and the world begins. If I'm melting into something, well, I'm literally losing me into that. If I'm merging into it, if I'm swimming in it, if I'm bathing in it. We talk about fireworks. We talk about volcanoes. We talk about all of these things that are expansive. Nobody ever talks about contracting in love. You never talk about the love box. It's always the ocean. Why? Because in that love, whether it's a romantic love, whether it's a love for a parent or a child, whether it's a love for God, the Guru, love for a tree, whatever we're loving, we're expanding in that love. And that's why being in love feels so good. That's why loving feels so good. And why people who, for example, have such difficult issues with loving in relationships so frequently resort to pets. Right? It's a lot easier to love a dog or a cat than it is to love people. Not to undermine the importance of our connection with our animals, which are beautiful and wonderful. But the point is that even for people who aren't able to have love in relationships, there's such an important need for that you'll find frequently they have pets. Something to experience love with, because that experience is so beautiful. So, going back though to the question of in that moment, so who is enjoying? Well, it's the mind. Because all of that which we experience, we only are able to experience with the mind. It happens in the brain. But the mind is that which tells us, you could say, what we are experiencing, that gives a name to what we are experiencing, that enables us to understand. Otherwise, it's just reactions in the brain. So the brain you can think of as the physical medium, and the mind being more of that which gives us names and forms and yesterday and today and tomorrow, and all of that we associate as thoughts or feelings or emotions. Well, it's the brain in which they're physically happening. But it's through the mind that we understand what's happening, or we give name to what's happening, or we process what's happening, or we understand what is happening. And so the mind is enjoying, because that's the only real part of us that knows how to enjoy. That's where it's processed. And when what we're doing is satsang, or being in love, or meditating, the level of joy is one that permeates into the depths of who we are. Yeah, it's the mind that says, I'm enjoying this. It's the brain in which you can look at it and say, joy. But it's actually permeating into every level of who we are and bringing us closer to our own awakening. Where there's joy, we are much more likely to keep accepting those invitations from the universe. Yes, this. Yes. Because we know that feels good. Expansion feels good. Truth feels good. Light feels good. Whatever it is, we've literally made these associations that feel good. So it brings us closer and closer and closer to our own awakening. When we are doing things that damage us, like the questioner gave the example of drugs. So if I'm doing drugs, who's enjoying doing the drugs? Well, it's still the mind. But it's not the mind that is moving toward our highest truth. It's not the mind that's looking for our enlightenment and expansion and fullness. It's the aspect of the mind that's running away from itself. Pain, fear, grudges, all of this also exists in the mind. And when I'm running from that, frequently the place that I run is drugs or alcohol. And so the momentary freedom from my experience, my conscious experience of fear or pain or uncertainty or boredom or all of these things that plague so many of us. The momentary reprieve from that the drugs give me is experienced as pleasure. The drugs also work on very specific neural networks in our brain of where pleasure is processed, and so literally give us neurologic shots, literally, of pleasure chemicals. But the pleasure is literally purely chemical. What's happening on a neural level in the brain, yes, the brain is saying pleasure, pleasure, pleasure. Yes, we know that. But it's not giving a pleasure that's actually, or a joy that's actually permeating into who we are. It's not giving a joy that has anything to do with who we are or our joy in life. It's just a literal temporary chemical reprieve. It's like getting a shot of anesthesia. You know, you go to the dentist, they've got a drill in your teeth. Well, it's going to hurt. So that before they drill, the dentist gives you a shot of anesthesia to block the pain. It's nice. It's a good thing. Otherwise, the pain in the drilling of the tooth is too much. But slowly, the anesthesia wears off. And if you have a good dentist, by the time the anesthesia wears off, chances are the pain in the tooth is also over, or it's mild. You can manage it. And after a day or two, it's gone. What the drugs do is very similar. They take a pain that's happening in our mind and they numb it. The problem is that the pain in our mind doesn't go away the way a pain in a tooth does. Until we address the pain in our mind, it's going to always be there. Which means you're going to have to literally just keep taking drugs forever. And if you talk to most people who use drugs, what they'll tell you is, oh, just one more time. Oh, just every once in a while. Well, it can never be like that. Because that which I'm running from in my mind is always there. So until and unless I actually deal with and heal from the pain, the fear, whatever it is that's going on in my mind that's making it too difficult to sit with, that I need to numb that chemically, the drugs are going to wear off. They all wear off. And then your choice is, you're back in pain, so your choice is, okay, deal with it now. In which case, in addition to the pain, you also now have your hangover. You now have the added pain of what coming down from drugs feels like, which is not just the absence of the high. There's actually a very specific low that is worse than you were before you took the drugs. So you have the original pain, plus you have the lowness that's worse than where you began, that's lower than where you began. So you actually need more strength, more courage, more perseverance to look at what it was that you were running from the first time. So either you look at it then, heal from it then, or you take drugs again. And every time you do that, you're lower and lower and lower than you were when you began. And so you need more and more drugs. This is what building up tolerance is. The brain stops responding to the chemicals so well. You need more of them to do the same job. And so at the end of the day, you really make a choice between either saying, all right, I'm going to just take drugs from now until the day I die. Or I'm going to look at what it is I'm running from, because I'm going to have to do it at some point, if not today, next week, next month, next year. If I ever want to stop doing drugs, I'm going to have to look at what I'm doing the drugs to run away from. So why not now? Why not now, when all I have to deal with is the pain or the fear, and not the added ramifications of the way that I've ruined my brain on drugs. Because here's the tragedy of it. With what the drugs do to your brain, they actually make it much more difficult to experience joy in life. So when you stop doing the drugs, the things that brought joy before you started doing them don't bring nearly as much joy. The brain literally has changed from doing the drugs. And so the things that bring most of us joy in life, deep joy, no longer bring such joy. The brain has literally been numbed down. It will recover, but it takes time. And this is why people keep doing drugs, because suddenly the joys of life are much less joyful. And that's a biological, neurological truth of an effect of doing the drugs. Which is why the sooner you can stop, or don't even start, the better off you are. And if you're already using, no problem, it's never too late. As Puja Swamiji, my guru, always says, whenever you wake up, it's morning. But what we do know for sure is that you're in better shape stopping today than you will be when you try to stop next month or next year. So now's the time. To get out of the loop of being stuck and to really know who you are, you just have to ask. You know, we're so used to finding out things outside. If you want to know something, well, just go on Google. I mean, literally, anything these days you want to know, just go on Google. Punch it in your phone, type it in your computer. If you're not so much of a computer person, open a book. Go to the library, ask somebody. We're primed to look outside to find things out. And that's why we end up learning everything about the outer world and still not knowing who we are. The only way to know who you are is to stop looking outside and start looking inside. And to ask the question. Because the truth is, you know the answer. Who you are is you. If your goal were, how could I learn about Mars? You'd have to find yourself a good astronomer. You'd have to find yourself someone with a good telescope and someone who really could teach you what Mars is. Because it's not intuitive. It's not self-evident. But the self should be self-evident. There is no one who is more qualified to tell me about myself than I am. I just need to ask. I'm so used to asking everybody else, I've stopped asking myself. I've also been indoctrinated to believe that I can't trust myself. That's the other thing that our world has done, is it has taken away our trust of ourselves. Whether it's our parents saying to us, you know, do as I say, not as I do. Do it because I say so. Do it because I'm your parent and I know best. To our teachers who say, don't question, you know, sit down and shut up. Raise your hand before speaking. We spend the first many, many, many years of our life being told, don't trust yourself, trust others. You don't know anything. You need to wait for them to tell you. So we've stopped asking ourselves. But who am I is something that can only be answered inside. Spend some time. Close your eyes. Find a quiet place. Dedicate 20-25 minutes morning and evening. And just ask yourself, who am I? Who am I? Who am I? And see what comes. It's going to be a much clearer path than trying to find someone who's going to tell you who you are. Because even if they know and they can see it, it still doesn't benefit you. It only benefits you when you know it. As I said, I can say to you, soul, spirit, divinity. But that doesn't benefit you until you actually experience it. So you have to go within. And one of the easiest ways is to clear out at least that which we know we're not. So all of the things you know you're not. So you know you're not your clothes, you know you're not your skin, you know you're not any of those things. Peel off layer by layer. Okay, well, I know I'm not this. I know I'm not that. I know I'm not this. Who am I? All right, well, I'm not this. I'm not that. Who am I? And just keep going. And the answer will come because it is in you. It is self-evident. It's the only thing we have to rely on internal knowledge to know. Everything else we can use our 5 senses to know the outer world. We can use Mr. Google or Miss Google to tell us about the outer world. But the inner world, we can't use any of our senses. Don't have somebody else as a tour guide. But it's us. So it shouldn't feel like such foreign territory. The fact that it feels like foreign territory is a tragic sign of our times. That, going off to Paris or Munich or New York or something is like, yeah, fine, yeah, I got all my maps in place, I know where I'm going, I've got everything booked. But oh my God, going inside, I don't know, I'm scared. What's going to happen? I don't know what to do. We know how to go everywhere in the world. Except in. That's the territory that should feel the most familiar. But it actually feels the most foreign.